Senator from Ohio.
Thank you, Madam President. I ask unanimous consent to dispense with the quorum call.
Without objection.
Thanks, Madam President. Last week, America lost a baseball legend and a pioneer for civil rights, Frank Robinson. Frank Robinson spent much of his career in Ohio. He starred first for the Cincinnati Reds, All-Star, World Series champion, a team that built a team around him in Cincinnati with Vada Pinson and others. Near the end of his career, he came to Cleveland and he managed for the Cleveland Indians. He was a pioneer for change in baseball. Larry Doby, whom we honored last year with congressional medal. Larry Doby was the first African-American player in the American League, played for Cleveland, came up only several weeks after Jackie Robinson broke the color line. Then Frank Robinson in 1974 became the Major League's first African-American manager. I was at the game when he first made that first game he managed. He hit a home run in his first at bat as the DH for the Indians. So he was what's called a player manager. In the days since his passing, we've heard people say that Frank Robinson was one of the most underappreciated legends of the game, but the same could also be said of his importance to our country. There are few players in baseball who have accomplished anything close onto the field or off the field that Frank Robinson did. The only person to win an MVP in both the American and National League, with the National League Reds, the American League Orioles. He was Rookie of the Year with the Reds. He won 2 World Series championships. He was the World Series Most Valuable Player. He won the Triple Crown with the Orioles. He was a Gold Glove winner. He was 14-time All-Star. He had 600 career home runs. The championships, the awards, the records alone don't define who Frank Robinson was or what his success meant to so many people. The Reds signed him right out of high school. He still strove for more. He took courses at Cincinnati's Xavier University at the beginning of his rookie season. He knew that courses wouldn't count toward any degree, yet he persevered. He was traded to the Orioles in '66. He witnessed redlining and segregation that prevented him and his wife from finding housing. One of the best players in the major leagues, he couldn't find housing in the 1960s in Baltimore. The city's star baseball player, but because of our country's racist housing policies, realtors wouldn't sell him a home. Parenthetically, I would also point out that today, some of those racist housing policies continue, and we have an administration and housing regulators that simply seem too busy to want to enforce fair housing laws. My wife and I live in zip code 44105 in Cleveland, Ohio. Our zip code had more foreclosures in first half of 2007 than any zip code in the United States. Don't think that some of these housing problems in this country and segregated housing, again, isn't because of some of these actions of the administration and prior to that. He didn't stay silent. He joined the NAACP, became a voice for the civil rights movement. Then, as I said, he was traded to the Indians, Cleveland in 1974. The Indians made him manager. As I said, the first African-American major league manager in the history of Major League Baseball. It took 30 years. It took exactly 27 years after Frank Robinson broke the color line for the owners in Major League Baseball to actually hire a black manager. 27 years. That accomplishment meant so much to so many. He proved what never should have been in question, all that African Americans belong not just on the field, but belong as leaders just like any other American. That accomplishment resonated not only among baseball fans, but in factories and schools and offices around the country. He was assembled as so many young Americans that these roles of authority and leadership weren't just ones that only certain kids whose skin was a certain color could dream of. These dreams are for everyone. It was a powerful message. It paved the way for so many great leaders on and off the baseball field. 2 years ago, the Cleveland Indians unveiled a statue of Frank Robinson in my hometown in Cleveland at Progressive Field. Mr. Robinson spoke at the unveiling. He talked about how far we've come, but then he said, there are people out there in the minor leagues and at the big league level as coaches. They've earned their way up, but they just don't seem to be able to break that barrier as often. All I can tell them is don't give up. Do not give up. We still don't see nearly as many African-American managers as there should be. And as we celebrate Black History Month, we as a nation need to heed Frank Robinson's words. We don't give up on his dream of breaking down the institutional barriers that are set up for people of color in baseball and throughout our society. We don't just honor Black trailblazers, we continue our country's unfinished work. Hard work isn't paying off for far too many people in this country. Hard work doesn't pay off for far too many workers, and women and people of color have even greater challenges. It's even harder to get ahead no matter how hard they work. We know that this country doesn't respect work, doesn't respect the dignity of work, doesn't honor work. As I said, we know is difficult. As much as this country doesn't compensate people for the work they do, it's, again, even harder for women and people of color. Let's honor Frank Robinson's memory. Let's honor the legacy of Black Americans, not just with words, but with actions to change that.